All right, welcome to the conversation. Steny Hoyer is one of the worst corporate politicians in the whole country, not just in the Democratic Party, in all of politics. In fact, recently, TYT Investigates did a story about how he helped his Wall Street donors in ending the eviction moratorium. And he is actually the #2 Democrat in the House. I say actually, but it shouldn't be a surprise to you. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House because she raises the most amount of money, and then Steny Hoyer raises the second most. And Steny Hoyer then does favors for those corporate donors that he raised the money from. That's kind of how it works. Well, he's got a huge challenger this time around. Michaela Wilkes challenged him last time and did really, really well. And now she's coming back for another run, even I think under better circumstances. So we want to talk to her. Michaela, welcome back to the TYT.
Hi, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, absolutely. So last time around, there was another progressive in the race. In fact, you guys even debated on the show. And this time it looks like it's just you versus Steny Hoyer. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So last time is it true you got over 40,000 votes?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, look, the margin was still wide, but that's a monster number of votes. I think that's way more than AOC got when she beat Crowley. So every district's different, voter turnout is different, but your 600 volunteers last time were amazing. So I want to talk about your stance, I want to talk about everything, but let's start with how's your campaign doing as we speak now, and why are you confident that you could win this time around?
The campaign is going great now. We had some lessons that we took away from last cycle, which is that we needed to start early, that we needed to get support early, and that we needed to raise money early. And so that is exactly what we're doing now. We're stronger than ever. Last cycle, I was a first-time candidate. We had a lot of first-time campaign staffers and volunteers, but this time we are strong. We're building on top of the infrastructure and the momentum and the movement that we started last cycle. And so I'm really confident that this cycle we're actually going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, so look, Michaela, one of the things I really like about you is you're no holds barred. So at the end of your statement, I'm running again for Congress because it's past time for some damn change. So tell me where you got that attitude from. Tell me about your life and why it's brought you to this moment.
Because I've had the same congressman for my entire life. Steny Hoyer has been in Congress for 42 years, back when Reagan was first elected, and we are still living in the Reagan era now. And so when I say that it's time for some damn change, I mean that it is time for some fundamental change that is actually going to transform our communities. And it's just not what we're seeing right now with our current representative.
Right, so I really found your life story interesting too, because we warn about school to prison pipelines all the time, and you co-founded, you're the executive director of Schools Not Jails because of something that happened to you. So tell us about that.
Exactly. So I was thrown into the school to prison pipeline. I was dealing with depression after losing my aunt on September 11th. She worked at the Pentagon, and I was dealing with depression. And instead of, the school administration around me offering me the resources that I needed, they actually offered my mom the solution of putting me on probation, in which I was incarcerated for up to 10 days for every 1 day of school I would miss, or for each class that I would be tardy to. And so coming up with Schools Not Jails was a kind of a way to work from the ground to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. And speaking of that, I was directly impacted by Steny Hoyer. He's someone who signed on to every single crime bill that is ever written, specifically the 1994 crime bill that actually increased the amount of funds towards the school resource officer program on the federal level.
Yeah, guys, see, Michaela's story is so emblematic of how deeply racist our system is without white folks even knowing about it. Because Michaela, I missed a bunch of days of school. Nobody would put me in jail because I grew up in a generally white suburb, right? I happen to be Muslim and Turkish, but it was a white suburb. Nobody's going to jail. We'd get into fights. There'd be knives sometimes, but nobody ever went to jail. You miss a couple of days out of grief, and next thing you know, they're trying to ruin your life. And it was those bills. Yes, Bill Clinton was a huge part of it. Honestly, Joe Biden was a huge part of it. And Steny Hoyer was an enormous part of it. So, and then you're an enormous advocate for Medicare for all, which Steny Hoyer is opposed to. So what happened in your life that made you such an advocate for it?
Yeah, so actually this happened in 2014, which that year was a really pivotal moment for me. I was pregnant with my daughter Madison, who's gonna be turning 7 in November. And I went to the hospital at least about 4 times complaining about shortness of breath. And each time I was dismissed. My pain was not taken seriously until the last time I refused to leave the hospital. And they had a doctor come into my room and they ordered an ultrasound and found out that I had blood clots, one behind each knee and one in my lung, which was causing the shortness of breath. I was basically on the brink of having a pulmonary embolism. And the medication for that was really expensive. I didn't understand why at the time I wasn't able to go home. But my doctor and my team of physicians explained to me that my health insurance that I thought was good health insurance, I had never been really, seriously sick before, but apparently my health insurance didn't see my life as valuable. They looked at it as a commodity and were refusing to pay for life-saving medications, completely disregarding not only my life, but the life that I was growing inside of me.
That's insane, man. Blood clots are super serious. I've lost several friends to blood clots, including great talk show host Michael Brooks. He died of blood clots. And it happens to you and they say, who cares? We've got the system completely under control. We've bought off all these politicians and they'll let us do this private healthcare insurance and we make money by denying your care. And by the way, a lot of these politicians, not the Democrats like Hoyer, but a lot of these politicians claim to be pro-life. Meanwhile, they're okay with you passing away, your baby passing away inside of you, because at that point, you're very advanced in your pregnancy. They don't care, right? And so we need Medicare for all. But the good news is your district is trending towards Medicare for all, right? Tell us about the news coming out of the district.
Yeah, so actually, Prince George's County passed the Medicare for all kind of resolution, but basically the district is moving towards wanting a universal healthcare system. And I think that this is largely in part due to the crisis of COVID-19, right? COVID-19 has showed us all that health insurance, healthcare should not be tied to number one, your employment, and for number two, whether you can pay for it or not. And so we're starting to see a political shift here in our district, and it's really exciting to see, where we're moving towards. It's really unfortunate that it took for millions of people to lose their lives, for millions of people to lose their jobs, their homes, everything to be just taken from under the ground from them. But what's also unfortunate is that these problems have already existed before COVID, but COVID pretty much exacerbated that. It highlighted every single issue, especially within our healthcare system in this country, which is broken. And so we're starting to see here in the district that people are starting to look at that and see that we do need to move towards something that is more equitable for everyone, and that we don't need to treat people's lives as if it's a commodity, because it's not.
Okay, that's great. And look, unfortunately, the media is such a giant part of the equation in these races. So I don't know how they've treated you in this race. So has the coverage been fair? How's it gone so far?
In my opinion, I don't believe the coverage has been fair. There have been a number of articles that have came out about women running for office, and myself has not been included. There's another challenger that is running against, I believe, Dutch Rupersberger. Sorry if I mispronounced their name, but she's also another Black woman that is a progressive. And we both have pretty much been erased from that conversation.
Yeah, how about, now the problem is you're running against number 2 Democrat in the House. So when AOC did it against number 4 Democrat in the House, ain't nobody gonna support it. That's why we started Just Democrats, so that people like her could be supported, because nobody in power would do it. And so have any groups backed you? Have any Congress people backed you, or no?
So actually, we have been endorsed by a few groups. We've been endorsed by a number of our local Sunrise Movement chapters. We've been endorsed by Roots Action. We've also been endorsed by a number of elected officials that are inside of the district. And I don't know if this is known, but last cycle, a lot of elected officials were really reluctant to supporting our race because of the Maryland political machine. But to see that we have a numerous amount of elected officials that have already endorsed our race, and this was early on in our race, around the time when we first announced, is really exciting and shows that this time around is going to be different.
Yeah, so look, I need the audience to understand. Last time, like I said, there was two progressives. It's hard for outside folks to say which one should we support, right? But Michaela worked so hard to get all those volunteers to knock on a record number of doors, got the most amount of votes against Steny Hoey that anybody's ever gotten in 40 years. And so give us your website, Michaela, because people need to come and support you. Volunteers, donations, etc. Obviously no corporate PAC money, so everybody help out. Otherwise, if we don't stick together, we have no chance.
Absolutely. Our website is michaelawilkes.com. And like I said before, we need support early on. So definitely support us with a contribution. And also we phone bank every Monday from 6 to 8. So help us speak with voters so that we can actually speak with as many people as possible, because that's literally the only way we're gonna win.
Yeah, Michaela has two giant advantages. One, she's really progressive and doesn't mind telling you. Okay, and that leads into the second one, which is that she's strong. As soon as I see a strong candidate working their ass off and believes that you can do these things, I see a winner. So Michaela Wilkes, thank you for joining us. Thank you for running again, and thank you for working so hard to make this happen.
Thank you so much for giving me and other progressives a platform.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.